Let's speedrun Cine Gear. Profoto is doubling down on their continuous lighting with a new insanely powerful 2000 watt RGB WW panel light. It shares a super minimal design with their traditional strobes, and at this point, I believe is the most powerful LED panel on the market. Godox had a big motorized reflector that I could see being really cool if you needed to make small micro adjustments throughout the day.
Yeah, the motors are taking our jobs.
Teradek has a new Bolt Mobile, which is a standard receiver designed for an iPhone and iPad. And the idea is that you can attach this to a low-cost mobile device without having to invest in an entire monitor receiver setup. I also got eyes on the Ultra 10 from SmallHD, and is probably my next monitor. I really like the idea of having a smaller portable DP monitor with a Bolt 6 receiver built in, so I can be a lot more nimble on location jobs. Blackbird had their new pivot balancer, which helps you more easily balance your camera when using the Mantis or Easy Rig, and after stealing it from a buddy, I bought one immediately. No more balancing the side to side with receivers and monitor arms, and the front to back makes it super convenient when I need to temporarily set an offset if I'm constantly pointing the camera up or down during a scene. You can even get two balancers if you have a dual Mantis arm and you want to just go sicko mode.
The tilt is so sick.
Typoch had a new 16mm in their Simera-C line with the most insane close focus at 6 inches, and what I love most about it is that it gives you that traditional pro perspective without the long barrel, so it becomes a lot easier to place the camera. With how popular POV cinematography has become in the commercial world, I can see this being a really valuable piece of kit.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Zeiss had their new Horizon Anamorphics, which sort of seemed like full-frame master anamorphics. They're hyper clean out the gate, and Zeiss plans to offer different back elements to offer different characteristics, similar to Aries impression filters. The big thing is that all the motors are built in within the housing, so you have to either use a Preston or an Airy lens control system. I think the idea is that it simplifies the user workflow without having to recalibrate lens changes and adjust focus scales, but I'm just like, okay. It's an interesting take on what the future of lens workflows could look like, but if it ain't broke, make it electronic, I guess. Cinelux had a 16mm prototype that shoots both analog and digital, which is first.
I'm interested and confused.
The idea is that the optical path from the lens to the viewfinder is instead redirected to a 3K digital sensor, which you can use for instant dailies, proxies, and gives you all the modern conveniences of digital workflows, such as on-set monitoring. And what's really cool is that they're working on creating film emulations to match whatever film stock you're actually shooting. I love shooting 16mm, and I think it's really cool that people like Cole are keeping film alive by designing an analog format in a digital age. Illuvision were showing off a ton of their beautiful rehoused optics, such as their Kairos, which are based off the Dallmeyer Super 6 optics from the 1930s, or the Dream lenses, which I believe are derived from the rangefinders. They even had a set of rehoused Petzl-Lite 65s, which cover 65mm, and I could literally play with these lenses all day.
Dude, that is trippy.
I got a chance to see Cooke's new AP3s at Cine Gear over at Hot Rod, and they're more reminiscent of the 1.8 full frame line, and I think their flares are super fun. Laowa had some super fun offerings I'm really interested in testing, one of which is basically if you turned a microscope into a macro lens to achieve up to 10:1 magnification. Another fun lens was their 8-15 full-frame fisheye, which expands the image circle as you zoom in for 2 different fisheye looks. Recently, I've been collecting weird and quirky lenses, so I'm probably going to add this one to my back pocket. Allfast Glass had a literal lens bar where you can go up and order from a massive selection of bespoke optics, which is probably the nerdiest bar I could ever imagine going to, but at the same time is really cool, and I'm so here for it. Sony's booth stole the show as per usual with the incredible lighting setup from Tico Herrera and color grade from Picture Shop.
Interesting.
The Rialto Mini was announced last year, and we can already see a bunch of neat use cases like the 3D rig that gave you a real-time 3D perspective with their spatial display that tracks the user without needing glasses, or the Cinemotion setup that had the camera flying through the dartboard and was actually using the same Typoch 16mm that I mentioned earlier. But the star of the show had to be the Rialto 65, which is Sony's new 65mm sensor for the Venice 2, which boasts an outrageous 9.6K 1.5:1 sensor, which I believe is one of the biggest digital sensors to date, and it's not even close. It's sort of crazy considering that just within the past few years, we've seen the rise of medium and large format from Arri, Blackmagic, Fuji, and now Sony. And I think that's my through line of this year's Cine Gear. Everything is bigger and grander to follow this large format wave, and I'm sort of torn because on one hand, sensors and image circles are becoming larger and way more accessible, while on the other, production crews and budgets across the world are getting slashed as we enter a race to the bottom. It's an interesting dichotomy to examine, and I think it perfectly represents the extinction of the middle-class filmmaker.